TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to another TellyCast. This week's show comes from Dubrovnik at NEM 2022, with telcos, producers, distributors and TV tech businesses coming together by the Adriatic to discuss and debate the future of the Central and Eastern European TV industry. My guests include Love Nature's Chiara McKee, Jonathan Broughton, the European Broadcasting Union's new head of strategy, Nebojša Taraba, founder of Croatian indie Drugi Plan, and Matej Lončarić, director of video operations and media brands JoomBoos and Miss 7 at 24 Sata. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast. So my first guest on this week's NEM special is Chiara McKee, Vice President of Love Nature EMEA and Board Director for the global Love Nature business at Blue Ant Media. Chiara, how are you?
I'm good, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Not at all, not at all. Great to bump into you.
Yes.
And here we are.
Backstage.
Exactly. And overlooking the beautiful Adriatic. So tell us, what are you doing at NEM?
I'm here showcasing our natural history brand, Love Nature. So we're a global wildlife and nature brand featuring powerful stories that foster a deeper connection to our natural world. So we're storytellers who inspire people to take care of the planet using the latest and greatest technology to capture premium content in the best quality possible.
So we're obviously here in Dubrovnik at NEM, which is focused around the Central and Eastern European TV industry. Obviously, it's a region that's important to you. Which markets within CE are most successful for you?
Yeah, so we've got good channel distribution in Czech, Slovakia, Romania, Hungary. We're in active discussions in Poland at the moment, and sort of ex-Yugoslavia region, Balkans, is one that we're now focusing on, and hence we're here at NEM trying to get our product across and get drum up some interest.
Yeah, well, tell us about that distribution strategy for the channel then. So how are you getting the channel out there? Because it's obviously a challenge for lots of different networks, is getting that good distribution right across the board. How do you approach that from a Love Nature perspective?
Yeah, so we're really lucky the fact that we are the content producer and distributor. We've got a vast library of original series and documentaries which we distribute in many different ways. As the producer, we have all rights. So we have Love Nature's branded pay TV linear channels, we have streaming channels with the likes of Amazon, we've got content partnerships like the one that we have with Sky, for Sky Nature in the UK, Germany and Italy. We've got global licensing via our Blue Ant International business, and we're now also operating in the fast space in certain markets, predominantly in the US. So we have lots of different channels and lots of different ways that we can work with partners.
This is something that we focused on during the dark days of lockdown. Mm-hmm. We were talking about, people maybe feeling, thinking a little bit more about climate consciousness and becoming more aware of our surroundings as we were sort of locked in, or at least, being able to get out on our own within nature, right? Because we couldn't really do much more. Yeah. Are you seeing that growing demand from consumers? Do you think that climate consciousness trend is building?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in respect of Love Nature, so during the pandemic, the fact that we are all native 4K programming. It's the closest you could get to nature without even being there. So we saw a huge drive in that respect. But then also, in terms of climate change and also just positive impact messaging just in the current climate that we're in terms of climate change, but also politically. I think Love Nature is bringing a really fresh message and positive message. So much so that we've even just launched our new CSR initiative called Love Nature Gives Back, whereby we're working with the conservation organisations that we feature in our shows to raise awareness for them and monetary donations. And again, we're working with our platform partners to help them achieve their CSR targets through working with us on this Love Nature Gives Back scheme.
Good luck with all of that and everything else you've got going on with Love Nature. It was amazing to see your presentation earlier on and the quality of that content and some very familiar voiceover narrations there as well, which is obviously a really key part of natural history content is getting the right voiceover. And it was Ewan McGregor I heard there, and various other well-known voices. So best of luck with all of that. Lovely to see you here.
Yeah, great to meet you, and thank
you
for having me.
We'll maybe have a beer later on.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chiara.
Thanks, Justin.
My next guest on this week's show is Nebojša Taraba, founder of Croatian production business Drugi Plan. Welcome, Nebojša. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm okay, enjoying Dubrovnik.
Fantastic. Well, me too. Drugi Plan is a very well-established production business that you're co-founder of. And you're based in Zagreb, right?
Yes, we are based in Zagreb. We have been on the market for almost 20 years now. 2 years ago, we got a new partners in the company. It's a Beta Film, big German and European distribution and production system.
All right. Well, congratulations on that. Tell me a little bit about Drugi Plan's growth then, and how did you start the business? Was it really in local production you started with, or was it, have you always been producing original content?
We started in beginning of 2004. Both me and my business partner have a journalistic background, so we spent almost complete career in journalism. And then in 2004 we decided to switch to stay with the content, but we were looking for a different way, different approach. That was the period of liberalization of the TV market in Croatia. They were opening to commercial broadcasters as well, and they were adjusting the legal side, the kind of...
The framework, essentially.
Yes, and with the European legislation, where they recognize position of independent producers, established certain mandatory quotas for broadcasters, so that's where we saw our opportunity and we started the company.
Well, it seems like you're doing fantastic business. I gather you produced an early HBO Europe original, and that's become an international hit. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was the first original HBO production in Adria region. In 2016, they announced the first draft contest. It was called for scriptwriters to submit pilots, and our very close friend did it. Immediately after that, they also started to look for local production companies to make it. We applied. Our friend's script won. We passed very, very tough procedure, but they liked the approach we proposed. They liked all above the line people we proposed for the project, as well as director, who was Oscar-winning director Danis Satanovic, and we won. And then we made it, we produced it in 2018. It was premiered on Content London in end of 2018 in December. And the show was released everywhere on HBO Europe beginning of 2019. In June the same year, it went to US as well, and worked quite well. And it was relaunched now. The rights for UK, United States, and Australia are with Walter Presents, so it's available there. So they relaunched it in November last year.
Well, that's a real testament to the quality, I think, of the show. We also saw relatively recent news. Probably not surprised that Beta Film were involved, but that's the distribution rights to The Silence, which is a crime series. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, Silence is it's our last project, which is also available from mid of March this year. It's available on HBO Max. It's the first proper co-production, international co-production started from here. We had a public broadcaster as a main partner in Croatia, but then we managed to get German co-producers, so it's Beta Film and ZDF Arte. And then we managed to get Ukrainian co-producers. It is Ukrainian branch of the company Star Media and All TV, the new Ukrainian streamer, which is part of Ukraine Media Group. Yeah, we made it last year. In this time last year, actually, we just wrapped it in Kiev. We shot, let's say, 2/3 in Osijek. That's the regional capital of eastern part of Croatia. And then we moved to Kiev. It was really great experience. Unfortunately, it was, let's say, it's the only, as we know, it's the only recent Ukraine co-production with Ukraine on the high-end level, as we know. So,
well, it kind of shows the promise that was not only the promise in Croatian co-productions, as you say, at that top level, but also Ukrainian as well, and it shows huge amount of promise and future, but which is obviously certainly in Ukraine has been curtailed by the invasion. So it's it really.
Yeah. So but we are not giving up, and we are preparing. We are right now in preparation for season 2, which is scheduled for the start of production for end of October this year, and we will this way or another go to Ukraine at least for a few days of shooting. Of course, we adjusted the story because it's contemporary story, and we adjusted it to the war reality. Unfortunately, the subject of the show became quite relevant because we were dealing with issues like sex trafficking and minor prostitution. It is actually based on the true events.
And we've seen reports of that, obviously, since the Russian invasion.
And now, when mostly women and kids are leaving country, there was from the very beginning there was a lot of predators on the borders from all around Europe and even far, from Europe, who were there, and so it's really a sad story. But as I said, it's relevant, and we hope that it could turn attention of the people to this problem.
Yeah, well, it's an important contemporary and local story to tell. Yeah. So in terms of Drugi plans, percentage of local production versus international originals, so what's the balance there?
Of course, we are, even when we take in account the entire the film production plus, let's say, TV drama production, it's not even comparable, of course. I mean, Croatia is a small market. It's 4 million people with quite limited financial potential of the market. But somehow we managed to, with even this small number of titles per year, we are available worldwide, So I consider that as a really great success, and it proves certain quality of the content coming from here. We didn't mention our other project. It's the TV series The Paper, which is available on Netflix globally in 190 countries, which was actually the first one from this part of the world and one of the few European shows which appeared on Netflix in 2018. So let's say I could say we have a quality. And we are lacking finance, but I mean the same is everywhere. But it also, we have to be honest and admit that of course every market has its limitations, and with this number of people, I think that it's completely okay to say that, let's say, 2, 3, maybe 5 titles per year are optimum for the market of this size.
In terms of local commission?
Local
or a local partner coming into an international project?
Or that could maybe increase the number. But if we are talking about local commissioners, then it would be really...
Yeah.
But as I said, not only financial limits, there are also creative limits. And so we really tend to go out once when we know that the quality we wanted is there, so going into hyper production will not bring expected quality. So.
Yeah. One of the things that could help supercharge the Croatian industry, certainly for Croatian content and how that might spread around internationally on the international market, is this the new media legislation which is coming into effect. And here at NEM, the Minister for Culture and Media presented the new legislation and what that means to the industry. Can you just give us a very brief overview of what that is? Because obviously the media laws, you talked about it at the beginning of how they changed perhaps since, the old Yugoslavia and how they started to come into sync with the EU media laws.
Yes, that is the key kind of adjustment of the local legislation to the European Union directive of audiovisual media services. It's just presented here. It was really great event with a lot of information coming, so it was really big thing here. I enjoyed, listening all professionals from all around the world presenting their experiences and now how we can, come into this setup. And thanks to those new laws, the main changes are happening within the law of electronic media, which in a way recognize the new reality with the new market players and defined the key relations between them and independent producers on the first side, defining quotas and the level of their investment into original content. There was one key thing changed in regard of the position of commercial broadcasters who before, in old version of the law, they had the obligation and quota which was in air time, and it was 10% of airtime annually has to be done by independent producers. And I can say it was here and there manipulated because it's hard to measure that way. So this time quota is now changed to the financial quota, and it's 5% of annual turnover has to be invested in the work of independent Croatian or European producers.
And that's quite significant, right? I mean,
it is significant. On the other side, we have a law of the public broadcaster. In their case, it's 15% of the annual programming budget. And we are talking in Croatian situation, we are speaking about, let's say, up to 15 million euros coming from that side. And now we expect at least 8, maybe 10 million euros will come from the side of commercial broadcasters. Maybe those numbers doesn't sound too big, but let's say what we consider here as a high-end production budget is on the level.
And that's a year. That's per year.
That's per year. Yeah, but we, for example, we 200,000 euros, 300,000 euros is let's say the budget of high-end series here. So
right.
It's not comparable with the bigger markets, but still the outcome is really high-end. And then finally, in new law, we have this moment that the telecom companies, whose big part of business now is actually media business, are also recognized as a broadcaster who has to invest to the content, and it's 10% of their annual media business turnover, which is also very significant amount.
And we've seen the importance of telecom players in the CEE market, and just seeing presentations. The presentation that closed the market was from Telecom Serbia. They have a studios business, and we talked to Jasmina on last week's show. So they're commissioning original content. So the telecoms companies are more and more moving into this. We've seen it elsewhere in Europe, but it's really important here, isn't it?
Definitely. And, especially because they are becoming the main providers and distributors of the content. IPTV penetration in Croatia is already on a level of 60-65% of entire number of households in Croatia are getting the TV content through the IPTV system provided by telecoms, and it will grow. Of course, they are also on a kind of crossroad right now, because what was a significant part of their premium packages is now coming to people through applications on the smart TV devices, and now they will also have to think how to keep and remain the user subscribers.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think that they are realizing that, and I'm kind of excited about future talks with them, because they will, and you also hear that we had the representatives of the two key telecoms on Croatian markets. They right now they really worry about capability of expertise of content they will have to produce, but
it's a new world for many of them, I guess.
Yes, but if they know which football league they should invest in, or for the TV rights, or maybe they should talk with independent producers. And so if we are okay for HBO or Netflix, then we should be okay for local telecoms as well.
Yeah,
so,
well,
they don't have to look too far.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. But it sounds like the future's bright for the Croatian TV industry.
Well, I'm optimistic. I'm really optimistic. And as one of the speakers yesterday said, I think it was Dana Stern. Yeah, she said that it's good to be in this business today, because all kind of content is really high in demand, and it's
more buyers being forced to buy locally, and
definitely, and we can see everywhere, that what we learned so far after streaming revolution started, that everybody realized now that actually the local content is a key. Of course, there will be always important of the big US studio projects, but it also proved in a way, and we also saw some good metrics and numbers proving that that what people appreciate the most is the local content always, and it's always before the rest.
Yeah, well, local content can travel. We've seen
and
it.
Then if you are authentic, if you are telling your story, people are curious about other people's stories, so it happens to us with the paper, for example, which was, we were telling very local Croatian transitional story about, destroying of the last independent newspaper in the country, the corruption, politics. It was like, it's very tough political thriller. And it ended up that we became enormously popular in almost everywhere in South America, in Latin America. So it was really Brazil, Argentina, Chile. The leading media was recommending the series. We are always among top 5 or top 10 best series and movies about journalism in their choices. So it's like.
It just seems to have resonated there in particular.
Yes, right? Yes. You are telling your own story, authentic. It's. But if you watch, for example, we are big consumers of UK content, and traditionally, even in Yugoslavia was the biggest buyer of BBC content. And what we like here from Britain are always actually very local British story, coming either from the province or London, whatever, but it's
Midsummer Murders or something.
Midsummer
like that.
Murders is extremely popular here, but Only Fools and Horses, it's like...
Really?
That was the most popular show ever here. Only Fools and Horses. Really? Then Allo Allo. Then You Rang My Lord. Then even the old one, In the Bus. I remember that.
On the buses.
In the buses, yes. Yeah, it's like, it was extremely popular here. So everybody knows here, if you go to Zagreb, to Split, and make some quote from Only Fools and Horses, everybody immediately will,
Oh, really?
oh, was it when Del Boy came to Rodney and said this, like, so
Excellent. Well, I'm gonna try that on the waiter tonight. I think in a
just
restaurant.
we call it mučke.
Mučke.
Yeah, that's what that means. Mučke. You say that somebody, the mučke is kind of like put two liquids together and then
Mix it.
Mix
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So, and we use that word when somebody is trying to avoid like the kind of little thief, like trying to,
right.
yeah, so exactly what they were. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody knows here mučke is essay, and everybody will say, oh yeah, I know, Del Boy.
Thank you so much. I mean, before you go, can you tell me what's on the horizon in terms of new projects? Anything that you can talk about?
We have right now, as I said, we are in. Also, I didn't mention we are literally in 2 weeks. We are starting to shoot season 2 of the British period drama called Hotel Portofino. We made season 1 last year here in Croatia. And it was quite successful. It's ITV, PBS, Foxtel Australia, and Sky Italia. That's on the servicing side. I didn't mention we have a very good and very functional tax rebate system here in Croatia. We are also preparing, as I said, for the season 2 of The Silence of our show, but we also have in a very advanced development some new co-productions, one hopefully with the ZDF, and another one with Iceland.
Oh.
We call it Series of the Social and Natural Catastrophe. So in short, the big cataclysmic volcano eruption happened on Iceland, and life is not possible for the next 20 years, so entire nation has to be resettled, it has to be moved somewhere and have to stay together for that period in order to preserve identity, culture, language. And then international community decide that they will put them on Croatian islands. And
Wow.
it's a kind of inverse
This sounds brilliant. Listen, any buyers who are listening to this, that's got to be.
And
that's got to be a
but
winner.
it is also a story about climate changes in the back, because volcanic eruption is hyperspeed climate change. And I was making research after the last, I don't know if you remember the last eruption on Iceland, which stopped entire air traffic over Europe for a month.
It stranded most of the international TV executives in Cannes.
Yeah, and then, I started to make some research and I found some extraordinary information. For example, scientists connect some of the most important historical events in a humankind history, which turn us in certain directions with volcanic eruptions. One of them happened on Iceland in 1784. It was very deadly eruption. It killed immediately 25% of the people at that time. Affected Great Britain a lot. It killed a lot of living stock, destroyed the crops. France, which was the biggest producer of the food in Europe in that time, was also severely affected. And the all ashes and the sulfur dioxide which went to atmosphere dropped in average the temperature for 3 degrees.
Wow.
So it cooled down everything. So there were no harvests for next 3 to 4 years. And big famine came to Europe. So all those French farmers and peasants who lost everything, they all moved to the cities. Most of them to Paris, and finally on 1789, the event as we know as a French Civil Revolution occurred, which reshaped the political history of So then that's how we can maybe understand climate changes in a better way.
And how it affects civil society, yeah.
And how it will affect people at the end. It will be a lot of movement. So, and we choose this eruption simply because it's, as I said, it's a hyper-speeding process. But we hope that people can start to think what is ahead. So.
Well, that sounds fascinating, Nebojša. I mean, I'd love to see that made. Good luck with getting one of those telcos or one of those new streamers in Croatia to get involved with that. Thank you so much for spending some time.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and good luck with everything. And maybe see you at MIPCOM.
Hopefully, I think I will be there.
All right. We'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
My next guest that I bumped into in Dubrovnik is Jonathan Broughton, who was formerly of Workshare Consulting and obviously one of the leading analysts in the TV industry. But he recently moved to the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, as their head of strategy. Jonathan, welcome to the show again, and congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you very much. It's fantastic to be back on the podcast.
I'm not going to do this on every interview on this show, I promise all the listeners, but we are sat on the hotel balcony and it's sort of evening beers time, so we're just having a sort of very convivial drink and a chat. That's just to paint the scene there.
It's the most picturesque interview I've ever done.
Well, there we go. That's it. Excellent. Well, we win there. So, Jonathan, European Broadcasting Union, the EBU. Tell us what the EBU is and what's its remit and what's your role as head of strategy there?
Great question. So the EBU was really set up to facilitate the broadcast industry across Europe and a little bit beyond. So we have core members in Europe, but also we have associate members as far spread as Canada and Australia. The EBU focuses around three sort of core areas, which is content, advocacy and transformation. And within that, we facilitate training, conversation between broadcasters so they can share ideas and discover where they should be going. But also sort of practical things, really practical things, such as facilitation of content. So we were involved directly in co-production, we're involved directly in content exchange, and we're also in the news space, which is so important to PSM across Europe. Involved in areas around this, which include secured news exchanges, which allow broadcasters from one part of Europe to securely receive content from other parts of Europe, so you can be assured that the quality and the security of the content that's being broadcast is accurate. So it's a big tool at the moment for combating sort of misinformation. The reality is that the EBU is incredibly broad, as we need to respond to member needs. Members are incredibly diverse across Europe, and the EBU reflects that. So there are hundreds of sort of smaller areas where the EBU has some sort of role to play, which reflects the challenges of said broadcasters.
Now, public service broadcasting has obviously been in the news a lot, particularly over the last sort of 2-3 years. Certain public service broadcasters are under threat, but also we've found that public service broadcasters have almost came into their own, really, I suppose, during the pandemic as a trusted source of information for viewers. Tell us about some of the challenges, though, that PSBs are facing right now, post-pandemic, and how the EBU plans to help them.
I'd say a good way to think about that is to get into the mindset, perhaps, of PSM. We've always talked about the currency of PSM being audience and relevancy.
And you say PSM when you say PSM.
I say PSM.
Sorry, as opposed to PSB.
Lapsing into EBU speak. There.
Right.
So we say PSM. It was originally used because we include a lot of radio in what we do, so we like to say PSM.
So it's public service media, essentially, is what you're saying.
It is, and I think it's public service media, and I think it's a really good term to perhaps take forward because, of course, a lot of broadcasters now have digital properties, so are they even broadcasters anymore? I mean, yes, they think themselves broadcasters, so they are broadcasters. But public service media, I think, is a term that actually encompasses what PSPs are rather than the term.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So apologies for the confusion, but
no,
I think it's a good term to use.
What are the main challenges and how does the EBU plan to help them with those?
The sort of currency of PSM, public service media, is the audience and the relevancy of the audience. So first, how many people can you reach? Are you doing it in a way that is sort of fair and accessible to the breadth of the population? And secondly, the kind of content that you're making for them, is it relevant to them? We're not saying quality measure here, we're saying a relevancy measure. So it should be things that are impactful for them, that are informative to them, and of course truthful and a good source of education. So there's a broad range of things that fit into that. But roughly they're the two pillars that public service media or broadcasters have built themselves on over the past decades. What we're seeing in this space now is that there's almost like a third pillar which is being added to that, and that's data. It's a very broad term which is applicable to many, many things, but it's data that allows you to better understand your audience in terms of what they want. It's data that tells you about where your audiences are moving to. It's data that says how you should best serve content to your audiences, where they're consuming their content, what devices they're consuming it on. So better understanding audiences is a massive challenge, and particularly because a lot of the new challenges to effectively eyeballs, or if you're radio, earballs, are in this understanding space. It's about trying to understand the content and the distribution faster and deeper than your effective new competition. I'll be a bit more specific about what that means in terms of what we do. It means getting faster distribution, or transformation I should say, of PSB VOD services. It means making them more effective. It means getting sign-ons who actually understand what people are doing and using on that individual service. But it also moves into understanding better about what content to commission, moving to perhaps sort of use cases and sort of more efficient ways of actually building and distributing content to start with. Further challenges that are sort of outside PSB control are always around sort of funding and public perception. So while we can talk a lot about these technical challenges, PSBs are always very concerned with how the public feels about them and how responsive they are to that. So there's always an underlying challenge, which is how do we best serve the public in the sort of new digital era.
One of the things I believe that you're lobbying for is around prominence of PSBs. So basically being able to access them and find them a lot easier rather than being buried down channel 567 of your electronic program guide. How do you go about convincing the gatekeepers for those EPGs to make sure that the public service broadcasting is much more discoverable?
There's sort of two main strategies, for lack of a better term, that I'd sort of highlight there. First off is that public service content is owned by the public, effectively. To draw a sort of an analogy, if you imagine public service media being like a hospital, which you've already paid for, you've built it, you've got all your beds inside and your doctors and nurses paid for, and you've also built roads to the hospitals so people can get to the hospitals. But what you haven't done is put any signposts up. So although the roads exist and the hospitals exist, nobody knows where to go to actually do anything when they're ill. So that's sort of one sort of analogy to why prominence is the right thing to do. Because in fact all you're doing is you're highlighting something that the public generally already owns to the public. So it's highlighting something they own, they pay for, is generally free for them at the point of consumption. I think what's really interesting as well as we talk to certain newer global players, I won't go into too much detail, where they're entering new markets or they're discussing distribution strategy, so I'm talking about owners of effectively smart TVs or connected TVs, there's tremendous recognition of the value of PSM content. Cynically, it's because it's normally free to them.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the local branding always contains this recognition and trust. And fundamentally, if you're buying a TV to watch, a few different things, sport, news, and entertainment, PSM will almost always have one of those three things at its core, if not all three. So there is recognition from the more neutral aggregators that they should be engaging with us to give prominence to PSM content because it's good for the population and it's good for them.
However, they're commercial entities, aren't they? And at the end of the day, it might not serve their own commercial interests to do that. So one of the things that the EBU also focuses on is around the issue of impartiality. Now, obviously, that's baked into the remit of many PSMs, in that they've got to be reporting any of these key issues in an impartial way. But how do you do that? I mean, how does a PSB remain truly impartial? You can imagine, sometimes I think of the BBC, tying themselves in knots over certain different issues, whether it's royalty, whether it's government, whatever the key issues are. And I'm sure this is the same for many other PSBs in various different territories around the world. How does a PSB remain impartial?
It's a great question, and as a slight plug, we have some great resources within our own news team if people are interested in finding out more. It's a lot of what tends to be discussed is giving voice to both sides, but that's not necessarily the way to remain impartial. What is increasingly the direction that sort of news organisations are moving in is sort of adding a third tier to what they do, which is sort of a fact or a truth check or something like that. The point is to give tools to audiences to guide them with facts to understand the truth of matters. So while it is important to give a variety of opinions on things, it's also becoming increasingly, especially in the age of social media, to provide tools to allow audiences to determine what actually it means, what formed those opinions, and to help them form opinions of their own. I think part of what we're seeing as well is a sort of slight shift from PSM role as effectively a radio or a TV-based distributor of news to something that's far more encompassing than that, and as well as including its sort of digital properties, has these sort of expert fact-checking tools as well.
We saw fact-checking tools really come to the fore during COVID, didn't we? And that's certainly the first time that I probably noticed them being as prominent on public service media that I was watching, and really valuable, particularly when we heard things about, 5G, people chopping down 5G masts and things like that, which is obviously crazy.
We noticed a direct impact from that. So we measure every year public perception of trust of information across many different forms, be it social media, online, newspapers, radio, TV. And what we did notice is that across the last 2 years, we've seen a massive dip in the trust associated with social media and an uplift in newspapers, radio and television, which is good because they're the formats which are easiest to hold to account. So it's nice to see a recognition from the public of where the truth actually comes from.
Yeah, and in a way, I mean, this is obviously not something that you would say, but in essence, COVID has really woken people up, I think, to the value of public service broadcasting, and there's been many other issues, political issues, and I'm speaking as a Brit who's recently been through Brexit, been through lots of different fundamental changes in the way the country operates. The value of having an impartial media resource there for you has been absolutely invaluable, and of course, I suppose the role of the PSB is they're always going to get attacked from both sides, and I suppose if they are getting attacked from both sides, they're doing the right job, right? So we could talk for hours on this because there's such a wide remit the EBU has, and and there's so many issues to discuss about, things like obviously media, the big media Death Stars as they're becoming known in the TV industry, the likes of Google and Meta and various other players, and the power that they've got and the influence that they've got. There's lots of different areas we could talk about. We're not going to do that now. Maybe that's one for a future show. But the one thing I've got to finish on is obviously the EBU owns the Eurovision Song Contest, which is obviously, certainly in the UK, I think has had somewhat of a resurgence. Certainly in the last month or so. The year before, I think we got 0 points pretty much across the board. But yeah, I mean, what if in terms of the organisation, not only all the dealing with regulation and training and all these other things you talked about, but having that as a properties, it must be wonderful to be involved with that.
It is, and not only that, it's universally beloved by the entirety of the EBU staff. There is much competition for who gets to go in a given year. I didn't get to go this year, but that's okay. What can I say about the EBU? We're really pleased with the performance of the Eurovision Song Contest this year. One of the key concerns among the many challenges of public service media is attracting youth audiences, and there's a few various strategies we work through with that, and one is distribution to sort of digital platforms. So this year there was a partnership with TikTok for distribution of various parts of the programming, including the qualifying rounds. And we got 189 million views of content via TikTok, which is fantastic. The Eurovision Song Contest always punches slightly higher for young audiences, but it's so important to kind of build that pipeline for the future. Overall, we got something like 169 million views on the night, and an additional sort of 20 million views for online. So it's nice to have something that is actually responding really well for sort of the new digital ways of distribution. So it sort of points to the longevity of the format as well as its brilliance and its success.
Yeah. And it was great to see Ukraine win, which was obviously a vote of support really across all the Eurovision territories for the country. But UK came second, so that was I've only been here 3 months, so I can't take all the credit for the UK's success. No, okay. Well, we'll see. Well, we'll look to next year, Jonathan, and I will be expecting a win next year. Jonathan, thanks for joining me. Great to see you. Thanks for taking time out at NEM to have a quick chat and enjoy the rest of the market.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Justin.
My next guest on this week's NEM special show is Matej Lončarić, Director of Video Operations and Media Brands at JoomBoos and Miss 7. How you doing, Matej?
Hello. I'm welcoming you here in Croatia. It's nice to see you here.
Well, it's great to be here, I mean, it doesn't really get much better than being here. And beautiful environment, great place to be. And, of course, amazing people to meet. Your business is really around digital-first content and short-form content, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about JoomBoos and Miss 7, because those are two separate brands?
Yes.
How you created them and, what their reach is, how big they are and what do they consist of?
Yeah, so I come to this company called 24SATA. That's a newspaper company. And my job was to shut down the TV station. We had a cable news TV station that was not monetizing and operating well on the market. And they said, okay, we need to do and try something else with video. Everybody is talking about the digital first and video strategies. And they called me to help them. They said, maybe you will succeed, maybe you will fail, but you're young.
Yeah. How old are you?
Now I'm 35.
Yeah.
When I joined, I was 27.
By the way, you're the TellyCast the first person that I've interviewed that's actually bigger than me. And I'm pretty big. I'm 6'4". I don't know how big you are, but it's good to feel like a small guy, a small person.
Thank you. I love to see a grown-up man.
Yeah. So, JoomBoos, first of all. So, how do you create content? So, it's short-form content for a young audience. Tell us about your audience for those brands.
When I came to 24SATA, I realized that I cannot bring the audience on 24SATA that will watch the videos.
Okay, and they were an older audience.
They were very old, and I saw on the market that YouTube is growing, and that the younger audiences are on all social media networks, and that they are gathering there, they're communicating, and that they are creating some kind of content. And then I said to the board, okay, let's create another brand that will support 24SATA. Like a massive brand that will create short-form videos that includes influencers, and let's conquer the world with that. And actually, they said, okay, let's try it. We had some cases on 24SATA, and the board said, let's do it. We had tremendous success. We did the break-even 1 in 3 months after start.
Really? 3 months?
Yeah.
Break-even. That's extraordinary.
Yeah. And
this is through YouTube advertising revenue?
Native advertising.
Right.
Yeah. And 6 months after the start we had break-even 2. So it was one of the most rapid projects in our group who showed that we can grow the new audience that we are not targeting, and that we can have some new income in the company that they were not thinking about.
Yeah.
And the next problem that we had in Croatia back then in 2015, there was only like 4 influencers
Right.
So we need to create a market. Firstly, we need to create a market with advertising agencies. They couldn't understand what is short form video, what is YouTube, and then we need to create new influencers.
All right. So you were actually educating the advertising agencies when it's their job to know, actually, which is, so you've been a real trailblazer there.
Yeah, so we needed to push a lot of doors. We needed to risk. Every day was a risk. And then we created a new show. It was our original video star show, where we are searching for the new influencers. And with that show, we had tremendous success. We won more than 7 awards in London, Berlin, and in Vienna for digital advertising and incorporating the brands in the show, and how we created the market that was not there before. So with that show, we create every year new 5 influencers. This show, firstly, we were searching for a YouTube influencers. Now we are searching for a TikTok influencers. And this is how we are like a factory of the new stars.
Right. So it's the short form format, essentially.
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes format with the coolest influencers that are in jury. And we have the hosts, we have even the live event when we are organizing the finals and who will win. Usually there is more than 700 people in this big studio of ours. Wow. That are watching this live stream that goes on for two hours.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. Leading on this success in New York in 2017, we won an award by EMEA. That's biggest organizations for newspaper publisher. And we won an award for the most innovative media brand in the world.
Wow.
And now, 7 years after, we are also creating a new brand in Slovenia because in the data of JoomBoos, we saw that there is a small amount of users coming from Slovenia, something around 7%. And we said, okay, let's see what are Slovenians watching. And what kind of content they like, and let's create a business plan for Slovenian market. So we created a sister brand called Jungla, that is positive from day one, and we are producing everything from Croatia and Zagreb, but just we're talking Slovenian.
So you see, this is what fascinates me about digital first content and producers of content being able to access their own data and create new business models based upon data by being lean and quick. And we've seen in the UK, we've seen businesses like Barcroft, now Future Studios, and Lad Bible, of course, and Jungle Creations and Little Dot and lots of other businesses, using a similar model, obviously not exactly the same, but testing and learning and slightly changing their format to understand what it looks like on a native platform and how. So when you talked about your show that you won all the awards for, are you creating a different show for each platform? For a different show for TikTok influencers, a different show for Instagram and
So it's a one show, but just how we tell the story is a different. So we're not just big broadcasters just cutting. Yeah. We see Instagram as a platform where you need to talk in one direction. Everything needs to be nice and super nicely. On TikTok, everything needs to be dirty. Everything needs to be plain, funny, and you need to create some challenges.
And you need to use the TikTok tools as well, don't you? The native tools like the voiceover.
The voiceover. Even some of our voiceovers are recreated more than 5,000 or 10,000 times, and that's big for a Croatian market.
Yeah.
When we are creating one show, we have a producer who needs to create a way how to communicate that show on another social network.
Yeah.
So it's not just cutting; it is communicating in a different way, and how to activate that users to come and see the original, I would say, big but short 15-minute or 20-minute show.
We're finding even shorter form content is becoming more popular. A lot of the platforms are creating shorts and 30-second or 1 minute kind of content as well. How does that work? Does that act as a bit of a trailer for the longer form show? Or?
No, we don't call it a trailer because in trailer usually you don't have any content.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, if we have 15 seconds or 30 seconds, we want to show the user or the audiences there is something that you can talk about with your friend. Or you can send it via WhatsApp. So it needs to be something like, cool, nice. That's
super shareable.
It's super shareable.
Yeah.
And if it's not super shareable, we are not publishing.
Right.
Because, it needs to drive some emotion. We are creating so much content, so we are using this fail fast, win faster. So we are using this data because sometimes we fail. But we are producing from these big shows a lot of one big show has 60 videos around. So we are targeting and we know what our users like to see and how they are reacting on something else. Also, when we are producing drama series or talent shows, we have a focus group. And as we are number one, also web and a news portal in Croatia, we can target our audience and ask them and show them a snippet of a show and see how they're reacting. And I think that we are the most horrible producers to script writers.
Right.
Because they write a show, we film it, and we just cut it, roughly cut it. We show it to the targeted audience, 30 people. And we see how they're reacting, and then we come as executive producers, change this, and this. This is not working. Why are you changing that? This is
this is great. The audience is telling the director what it wants.
And
that
we
really
see
is
how
the future of content, isn't it? Yeah.
There is also some things that you cannot apply because our audience cannot understand how the content flows at the end. But we discovered some of the things that audience told us. How to integrate and how to be more interactive. And it doesn't need to be everything extravagant, extremist. They just even like to see some parts of videos that they love to engage, in beautiful scenarios and so on. And we were surprised.
Yeah.
So we are also learning, and also it's fun how we are learning from that youth audience. We are always surprised, and we said we don't understand it, and we let them for a half an hour to explain it to us what is happening and what are the new words that they are using and what is the new slang.
Right, okay, so you're really tapping into that youth audience and learning. It's almost like a laboratory, if you like, for content. Really interesting. So JoomBoos is one brand, and you have, how many original show brands do you have then within JoomBoos? Okay,
so we have over these 7 years, we created around 35 originals. So approximately 5 originals per year. But we are now proud that we created our first global original. So we created our first bilingual English-Croatian series. We had tremendous success with our dramas for teens. So they're the most watched drama series programming within the Croatia.
Really?
And ex-Yugoslavia. And so we said, okay, let's go more abroad. And let's add some new influencers that are global influencers. So we have one global influencer who has more than 17 million followers on TikTok. We brought one influencer and new anchor from London to Croatia.
And they're actors then?
And they're actors.
They're actors and influencers. They're actors who happen to be influencers, essentially.
Yes. But their main job is also to be influencers. They have a strong influencer base and their social networks are really, really strong. Yeah. So we brought them to Zagreb. and we created this third culture teen coming out of age drama series.
What's it called?
Called The Outsiders.
The Outsiders.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And we are actually targeting here more than 250 million teenagers in the world, who are the daughters and sons from diplomats, digital nomads, everyone who is changing, the kids who are changing every 3 or 4 years their hometown.
Right.
And when you ask them where are you from and where do you belong, they don't have the answer. And we saw that there is a lot of groups and forums around that topic that nobody tackled in. We are in these stories, The Outsiders. The outsider is the main character who comes to Croatia from London. His mom is a diplomat. And he, as a teenager, he's challenged to have the new friends every 4 years. His love story, and within everything, he is a popular TikToker, and everyone in the school in Croatia is making fun of him being a famous TikToker. Uh-huh. So we are following that story and how he adapts, and how people are adapting to a new cultures and new things.
So it's really like an authentic drama, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
Well, I had a look on your YouTube channel, JoomBoos, and you've just had over 1 million followers on YouTube. What about the other platforms then? What about TikTok? I mean, is YouTube your biggest channel? Or?
Yeah, we are highly focused on YouTube. 1 million is for Croatia is a huge number because we are the nation of 4 million people. And there are 600 teenagers and youth audiences in Croatia. So we have actually 300,000 users from Serbia. The other channels that we are supporting, JoomBoos, is TikTok, where we have 500,000. Instagram, that is also on 500,000. Of course, we have a Facebook with something about 150,000. And you'll be surprised, but we have released our magazine, printed magazine.
Right.
Because we built this strong brand that is really connected to the users. And our target audience is actually going to the kiosks and buys the magazine as a souvenir.
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's actually new media going into old media, which is fascinating the way.
And this is the way how we are actually demonetizing, because we didn't understood that we can. I mean, I'm coming from a completely digital world, and I was editing the magazine. I didn't know how to do it, I had mentors, you need to put this picture, that side, and so on. But this is this product is on the kiosk is very expensive for the Croatian. On the Croatian market, it costs €5. The other teen magazines is around €2. So, and we are sold out.
It's a collector's item.
Yeah.
Well, Matej, I'd love to talk longer, and I'm sure we will when we do more shows around short-form content and digital-first content. And we didn't get a chance to talk about Miss 7, which is another brand you have, but we'll do that on a future show. So, Matej Lončarić, thank you so much. Really enjoyed chatting with you, and good luck with everything. It's a real pointer to the future of media in Croatia. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that's about it from Croatia. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks to Sanja and the Media Vision team for asking me to host this year's event too. It was great fun. Next stop on the TellyCast European Tour is Annecy, where I'll be gathering with the world animation industry at MEFA. Don't forget to visit tellycast.com, where we have all the content from the TellyCast Content Funding Festival together in one place for free. Just register at tellycast.com. Until next week, stay safe